Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be building a set of custom DIY wood shutters for the outside of my house. I want to get back to the original, which means I need to make new shutters with clean, non-rotted wood. While I mill up the lumber, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the type of wood that I'm using for this project. Here in Switzerland, I have access to tuya, which is a type of cedar. It's very durable, great for outdoor use, and stays very straight after milling. Red cedar is also a great choice if you can find it. It's pretty expensive. I have access to it. In the end, I paid about 1,100 Swiss francs per cubic meter, which works out to about 80 Swiss francs or about $100 per window, assuming that I need 3 parts per window. Once I got all of the rails and stiles and louvers milled down to the final thickness and width, I went over to the router and I put rounds on the sides for the louvers. For the louvers, I usually work with pretty long pieces and then I cut those to length afterwards. And now here you can see all of the rails, stiles, and louvers for one window. And I'm going to cut one end of these stiles, or the upright parts, for the shutters. And that'll give me a nice perpendicular square face to start the slots for the louvers. And this is the jig that I'm going to be using. If you haven't seen that video, take a look. I'll leave a link down in the below on how to make that jig. Basically, you start off with one of the slots and you use that slot to then register with a pin, and you keep going down the line. For this particular shutter, I need 26 of these slots. It takes me about 10 to 15 minutes per style to get all of those 26 slots in place. So I produced a video already on how to make this template to cut out the slots for the louvers, and I'll leave a link below to that. You'll notice a couple things in that video that I didn't talk about, and I want to bring them up now. If you're going to use a template like this, I would have 2 suggestions, 2 tips to improve this. One is, after you make your first row on the first half of the shutter, I would line that up with the second half and transfer marks for the top and bottom. It only takes a few minutes to transfer all those lines over, and that way when you place the template on top, it's very easy. Then you can kind of look through here and see that that those lines are centered. Just make sure that you don't compound any errors. One of mine that I cut, I got off just a little bit, and that error compounded, and by the time I got down to the bottom, I was off by more than a few millimeters, and that would effectively, you'd see that, I think, in the final shutter. The second tip is, if you see in that video where I made this, I have a lot of chips down in here, and it actually blocks this from creating a full slot. So I would have to take the template off, vacuum it out, put the template back on, and that was also creating some error. So what I did, besides the fact that I'm using an upcut spiral bit, but the upcut spiral bit only works if you have some way to pull those chips out. And in this case, because I've got this on here, I don't really, there's nowhere for the airflow to go. So what I did is I put a couple of holes, one hole that goes all the way through to my slot on this side, and another hole that goes all the way through to here. and that creates a little bit of airflow, and now I can do it in one pass and all of the chips are gone. By the time I pull the router off, everything's out of there. So those are a couple quick tips to if you're going to use this jig. I'm using bridle joints to hold the frame together for these shutters. And on one end of the stile, I need to put a mortise here on. And to do that, I've just got a jig that I've built that goes over my rip fence. It's pretty easy, pretty simple. And by rotating the piece after the first cut, I can make sure that that slot that I'm putting in there for the mortise is perfectly centered. And now I can just slide my fence over just a little bit and I can cut that center section out as well. The other end of the stiles get a tenon, and to do that I flipped my fence over to the other side, and now I'm just moving my way across. You could also do this with a dado stack. I just chose not to spend the time to install it. It takes a little bit longer, but this way I found I also get quite a nice cut. And again, I'll just rotate the piece so that I'm sure to get a nicely centered tenon. The stiles are ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and break the corners, and I'll just do that by hand with a block plane. So after I finished cutting all the joints, I sanded everything up to 120 grit, and at that point I was ready to start applying the finish. I'm using a brand here in Switzerland called Alpina. I'm using the 3 different coatings to get to the final protection. This particular window cover is going to be in a lot of sun. It's underneath a balcony, so it's probably not going to see a lot of moisture, but I still want to protect it to the maximum that I can. So I started out with a primer. The primer takes about 6 hours to dry, and then after that I used 180 grit by hand to get everything kind of knocked down a little bit. Then I started applying the glaze. This is called Holzlasur in German, but it's basically a glaze. I guess that's like a stain mixed with something else. This takes about 3 hours to dry between coats. I used 2 coats of this, and I also today I am ready to start applying the last coat, the 4th coat, which is going to be it's called Fenster and Türenschutz. This means window and door protection. According to the can, it says that this stuff will add 9 years of protection. It's got a really high UV protection in it. I'm not sure if the combination between the glaze and this actually gets me to 9 years, but either way it's going to provide a lot of protection. I've got 4 coats now on this. The one thing that I did not do is I did not put the glaze on the back side where the joints all come through. These are all just inside of the window covering. So the joints will come through. I'll flush trim this, sand it down. I'll apply a little bit more primer, and then I'll have to go back through the whole process to get the outside, the 4 outside edges of it. But the nice thing about doing it this way is the inside and the outsides are nicely done. The brush strokes are all going in one direction. If I put this together and then tried to paint it, getting in here would end up leaving streaks and runs. All of the louver parts also have 4 coats on them, and I can go ahead and cut those to size. And now that I have a fresh cut end on each of those two cut ends, I need to dip those in something to protect them, and in this case I'm just using a primer. So now that the top coat is dry, I can go ahead and start the glue up. Now, one of the reasons why I did these through mortise and tenons like this is to make the glue up process a lot simpler. These louvers don't get glue, but what I can do is I can put all the louvers in, get everything without glue, get everything situated and set, and then at the end I can add some glue and slide on the two pieces onto the end. Even though I'm using Titebond 3, which gives me a little bit of extra time, I don't think I really need it with this method, and it makes the glue up a lot less stressful. All of my joints are cut to about 1 millimeter over size, which makes it pretty easy to use a flush trim bit and get that all in one pass. The last step I need to do is cut the half lap. That's where the shutters come together in the middles. There's sort of an overlap there, and to do that I've installed a sacrificial fence and a dado stack, and my dado stack is right up against that sacrificial fence. And then I've also installed a couple of runners on the top of my table saw to sort of protect the finish that I've got now on the shutters. And these are my tips and tricks for this build. First, use a jig to cut the louver slots. This makes things a lot more consistent. Just remember to lay out the slots so that you know where you're putting the jig. Number 2 is to pre-finish the inside faces. In the prototype that I built, I tried to put it all together and then finish it, and this turned out really horrible. Very inconsistent, lots of drips and runs. Very difficult to get a nice, even, clean finish with the brush strokes going in all one direction. And the third recommendation is to dry fit and custom cut the rails. When I built the prototype, you can see there's some pretty big gaps at the top and at the bottom, and that just didn't look good. So in the final, I left the rails a little bit wider than I needed, and then I dry fit everything and custom cut so that the final fit is much tighter. The last step is to add all the hardware back on. I just used the other shutter to measure and as a reference, and pre-drilled and piloted all of my holes before I put in all the screws. And there we go, all done. This was one of the most complex DIY projects I've tackled so far, but it's totally doable with the right information. It's possible that I've overcomplicated some of the steps, and certainly there are some professional finishers out there who are laughing at my painting, but I think the results speak for themselves. If you're looking to upgrade your home with handcrafted wood shutters, I hope this gave you the confidence to start. Drop any questions in the comments and let me know what projects you want to see next.